Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church Online. My name is Steve Mason, and I am your worship associate this morning. Our speaker today is Pastor Kris Cervantes, and her message for today is titled, Companions on the Road. We hope that you find today's service meaningful and a breath of fresh air during these very troubling times when we are unable to meet in person.
Each week at this time, Unitarian Universalists are lighting chalices all over America, Canada, and the world. As we light our chalice today to remind ourselves of the spark of truth, love, and warmth that we value so much, I invite you to enjoy these words attributed to Kalidasa. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, attend to this day.
Unitarian Universalism is a religion characterized by a free and responsible search for truth and for meaning. UUs assert no creed, but instead are unified by their search for spiritual growth. The thread that binds us is our purpose and our shared covenant. Please join me in saying it together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another. I think most everyone would agree that we are living in uncharted, troubling times. The pandemic, social injustices, and political divisiveness have created increased levels of anxiety in each and every one of us. As we share these precious few moments together, relax and listen to the words I have paraphrased from writer Abby Wilbrut. May you be strong in spirit, courageous in action, and gentle of heart. May you act with wisdom as you conquer your fears, and may you greet others with compassion. May you be a source of healing energies, and may you face each new day with joy, hope, and love.
People will do just about anything to fit in. A brief perusal of fraternity hazing real evidence, forced alcohol poisoning, naked yard work. Those are just the start of the grotesqueries. On the less disgusting side of the ledger, there are initiation rites into the Masons, the Elks, the Shriners, and so on, in which initiates are placed in situations of manufactured suggestibility and then shown great mysteries, which presumably bind them all together as one body. One usually old, usually white, usually male, and usually straight and cisgender body. What are you going to do? Women do it too, although with less vomit and excrement than some of the fraternities I read about in my research. You might think that's a good thing, but I am not so sure. One sorority had pledge candidates strip off their shirts and bras and line up by breast size. The young women were then visually examined and critiqued by their putative sisters. I think I would rather do naked yard work myself. You may be thinking, thank God I never did that. Or you may be thinking, dang, I miss my fraternity brothers. But if you're thinking you're immune to the urge to join up, you're fooling yourself. Sorry. Although there's no secret Unitarian Universalist handshake yet, can we get on that, please? We do have our rites of initiation. There are the official things like coming to a new members class, signing the membership book, and so on. And then there are the unofficial things like learning to make the coffee, being a Zoom host these days, and the big one, being asked to serve on a team or on the board. So we try hard not to do that ritual of adding you to the board within your first month, but I have heard some horror stories from other churches. One featured a man visiting the church where his father had been the treasurer for 30 years and being asked if he was interested in doing their books. The visitor lived 200 miles away, his father was long gone, and he could have been born with a crippling mathematical disability for all they knew. We all want to belong somewhere, but why? Biologically speaking, the need to belong makes perfect sense. It's a scary world full of teeth out there, and humans with functioning family groups do better than those without. Just this week, I was reading one of my books about womanism, and the story of Hagar drove this home for me. So here's the Cliff Notes version. Abraham and Sarah are married. Sarah can't have babies. So Sarah gives her personal slave, the Egyptian Hagar, to Abraham. Hagar gets pregnant, and Abraham's happy. The custom allows him to adopt the child and legitimize its place in the family hierarchy. So then Hagar is happy, no doubt being the mother and wet nurse to the house's heir is a step up. Hagar, in fact, looks so happy that Sarah sees contempt in the slave's eyes. Up with this Sarah will not put. She asks Abraham to deal with Hagar. Abraham, a wise man who never interferes in the business dealings of his wife, says, "No thanks, I'm sure you've got this." So Sarah makes Hagar's life a complete misery, just torments her, tortures her, makes everything difficult, and she's cruel. And in fact, she makes it such a misery that Hagar runs away into the wilderness, pregnant and alone. This is one of those places in the Bible where it's hard to tell if God is hero or villain, because as Hagar is sitting by a spring in the wilderness, frightened and alone, God appears and tells her to return to her mistress and submit to her. On the surface, God telling an African woman to return to slavery under a cruel and jealous matriarch is the unadulterated act of a villain. I mean, it's God. Do better. Beneath the surface, though, perhaps God knows that Hagar simply cannot survive in the wilderness without a community. To put it a new way, perhaps the core value for God here is survival. The God of the Hebrew Bible definitely knows about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because the God of the Hebrew Bible reflected the Israelites' needs and responses to a surrounding world that was, in fact, dangerous. Fast forward 5,000 years or so, don't at me, the world is still a dangerous place. Even when it's not physically dangerous to be alone and on your own, it's psychologically and spiritually dangerous to be so. Our minds and souls have been programmed over all those millennia and more to crave connection and belonging. We don't function well in isolation, even if our basic needs are met. Belonging is a good thing. Belonging is survival. But also, of course, belonging can be a tragedy, because to belong is to stand within a circle that only certain others can enter. To be inside the circle, someone has to be outside of it. The terrible dark side of this equation is that our need for belonging is so great, we are often willing to dehumanize everything and everyone outside the circle and apply our own core values and ethics only to those who share membership with us in the in-group. We see this happen politically every day, on every point on this political spectrum. Reaching back almost 4 years, I would say that liberals lost the presidential election, at least in part, because of the dehumanization of their candidate. Enough voters were convinced that an apparently competent and capable woman wasn't worth voting for, and so progressives lost. On the conservative side, the dehumanization of those who are other, anyone who isn't a member of the wealthy and moneyed classes, which is often related, always related, let's be real, to skin color and to sexual orientation and gender identity. Well, anyone who doesn't fit the mainstream quote unquote norms is outside the circle and not worthy of receiving benefits or being seen as human. And so we see a culture in which an accused child molester can run for office with the full support of his party. And don't even get me started about QAnon and that load of horse manure. Liberals and conservatives, we share many of the same core values and goals. We want to care for people. We want the country to flourish and be safe. We want jobs for ourselves and for our family members, decent jobs, a living wage. And we want a decent shot at upward mobility, whatever that might look like for an individual or a group. But those core values, those desires, aren't granted or given equally. We apply our core values mostly to our own tribe, and those outside of it get our leftovers, whatever we can spare of our compassion, inclusion, and generosity. I do it. I know I do. I've certainly dehumanized folks on the other side of the political and ethical divide from me, and I'm not proud of it. And I'm trying hard to recognize that and to slow my roll when it happens. With all of that in mind, the need to fit in, the terrible consequences of dehumanization, the dangers of applying our ethics piecemeal, can the need to belong be redeemed? Well, let's talk again about the good parts of that desire to be within community. First of all, belonging to a community works. Not only are humans generally safer from physical harm with other humans, they are happier. Studies of the elder population, for instance, have found a clear causal relationship between one's happiness in old age and how many friends one has. Not family members, friends, companions on the road. If the tribe or community is big enough, if we draw the circle large enough, it lets us care for many others. Family members, yes, but also the communities in which we live, the planet upon which we dwell, and even that elusive and frightening person, the other. Because if the circle is drawn large enough, the other disappears, replaced by a fellow traveler, a new companion on the road. And finally, when we recognize that the need for connection and belonging is universal to us all, a culture of radical hospitality can emerge in which we not only care for the other, but take them into our homes, our churches, our countries, and our hearts. So a question we must ask ourselves is not if we belong, but to whom we belong. There are as many answers as there are philosophers. Do we belong to ourselves, our families? Do we belong to the planet Earth? Do we belong to God? If not God, then do we belong to the good, our ethics, the ideals toward which we endlessly reach? Well, I don't know if you can see this, but it's my tattoo of an ampersand with a chalice on it. The answer is yes. And do we belong to ourselves? Yes. I am the only person in the universe who I can control, so I definitely belong to myself. And you belong to yourself too. Do we belong to our families? Yes. And as we age, those families may change and complexify. Sometimes we belong to families bound by blood and law. Sometimes we belong to families of choice. Both are good. Both are often necessary. Do we belong to our planet? Good question. Yeah. The cold, dark vacuum of space, it's hostile territory. We cannot survive as a species without the planet, and we definitely belong to it, and it to us, with the power that we've accrued over the centuries. And here it might be useful to ponder whether or not we've acted in good faith with the tribes of the earth. Do we belong to God? Do we belong to the good? It's the same question for many of us. And I will say to that, yes, 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 yes. And like all relationships, our relationship to goodness is one that takes some intentionality, some examination, some humility, and some humor. It's all too easy for us humans to lose touch with goodness, kindness, and decency. We have watched it happen in real time. None of the belongings we've talked about are easy. Hagar's belonging to herself led her into danger, and she was led back to a family which saw her as property rather than person. Our own families or community members may draw different circles of belonging than we do, and because we also belong to our ethics, the good, we have to be willing to cause healthy conflict by stepping outside those circles when they're exclusive and dehumanizing and trying to bring our friends along. But these same ethics have to be applied equally to those who shy away from the wider belonging that we seek. This is the hard part for me. I won't stand in a circle of sexism or white nationalism or homophobia or transphobia, but my core values, the good part of me that I want to nurture and grow, well, my core values push me to reach for those who do stand there, offering membership in the whole community of self, other, earth, and ethic. The title of this reflection is Companions on the Road, and I am so glad to have you all as my companions on the road. But the subtitle is definitely, Where do we belong? I think the answer is, we belong right here, right where we are. We belong here because we need to survive, and we need one another to do that. Because we belong to ourselves and each other. Because we value radical hospitality and reaching across boundaries and caring for one another and the earth. Because the dark side of belonging is so very present and active in the world, from the privileged stupidity of fraternity and sorority hazing to the dirty, ugly reality of being returned to a household in which one is enslaved. For all these reasons, we, you and I, we belong here with each other. There's so much to do, and we can do it together. Part of the work that we have to do is inviting others into this circle of seekers and walking with them into the great big wide world to widen the circle of belonging. One of my favorite rituals of closing small groups consists of getting into a circle, taking one another's hands, and receiving the words that one neighbor will say to you. They'll turn to you and say, I take your hand so that together we may do the work we cannot do alone. And then when it's my turn, after I've received it from them, I go to the next person and I say to them, I take your hand so that together we may do the work we cannot do alone. But the reality of our situation these days is that we can't come into the same building, coronavirus. We can't get into a circle. Oh my God, where's my social distance? And we definitely can't hold hands because I swoon at the very thought. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to reach out to you, and I want to tell you, yes, you, right there. I reach for you so that together we may do the work we cannot do alone. And now, I hope that you will reach out to one another and to me and repeat those words. I reach for you so that together we may do the work we cannot do alone. I know where I belong, and it's right here with you in this moment on this day. And I'm so grateful to have your companionship on this road. Amen, and blessed be.
One, two, 1, 2, 3. There is no combination of words that I could put on the back of a postcard. No song that I could sing, but I can try because this is your heart. These are our dreams, and they are made out of real things, like a shoebox of photographs, sepia tone loving. Love is the answer, at least for most of the questions in my heart. Like why we're here and where do we go and how come it's so hard. It's not always easy and sometimes life can be deceiving. Tell you one thing, it's so much better when we're together. It's so much better when we're together. Yeah, look at them stars when we're together. We're so much better when we're together. Yeah, so much better when we're together.
Just might find their way into my dreams tonight, but I know that they'll be gone when the morning light sings. So brings no thanks.
For tomorrow night, you see, they'll be gone too. Too many things I gotta do. But if all of these dreams might find their way into my day-to-day scene, I'd be under the impression I was somewhere in between, with only two, just me and you. Not so many things we gotta do, places we got to be. We sit beneath the mango tree now. Yeah, so much better when we're together. We're somewhere in between together. Yeah, so much better when we're together. Yeah, so much better when we're together. I believe in memories, they look so pretty when I sleep. Yeah, now when I wake up, you look so pretty, sleeping next to me. But there's not enough time. There is no song I could sing. There is no combination of words I could say, but I will still tell you one thing, we're better together. Take care, everybody. Aloha.
This religious community exists by its mission, just as a fire exists by burning. But a fire cannot burn without fuel. Likewise, it is the time, the energy, the talents, and the financial support of the members of our church that fuels our mission to nurture and sustain a welcoming, inclusive, and diverse religious community, one that transforms lives and serves our world. Without your generous support, the flames of justice, community, and love cannot burn brightly. At this time, I invite you to freely give to Community UU Church in order to continue our work together, including these online services. And you can easily give online. Just go to communityuuchurch.org and click the blue Donate Now button. Your gifts are greatly received in this time of uncertainty.
As we come to the end of our service, we extinguish our chalice each week. And as we do so, we speak some words together, once again affirming that although the chalice here in this place may be extinguished, we will carry its light forward. And so please join me in speaking the words of our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Today's benediction or closing words comes from Emily Dickinson, one of my favorite poems of hers, Hope is the Thing with Feathers. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash this little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest seas, and yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Go in peace, go with laughter in your heart, go with joy, and remember you have many companions on this road.
As we conclude today's online service, I wanted to let those of you that may not know, our church secretary, Connie, was recently hospitalized. Connie fell at her home requiring hospitalization, and for a while she was in intensive care. But thankfully, she is doing much better now, and currently she hopes to be released from the hospital this weekend. Please keep Connie in your thoughts and prayers, and our entire church community wishes her a very speedy recovery. Thanks for watching our online service today. Be sure to join us next week when Pastor Kris will be sharing the thought-provoking words of Theodore Parker, an American transcendentalist and a reforming minister of the Unitarian Church in the mid-1800s. His words and popular quotations would later inspire speeches by Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King, and now Pastor Kris. Thanks again for watching. Stay safe. See you next week.